Hi, very warm welcome to you. It's Dean from maverickstar Observatory. Wanted to go over just a few things that can hopefully demonstrate, where we could possibly be right now with regards to how close we are actually to going into a glacial period. And then on top of that, obviously we've got the effects of the pole shift that is taking place and grand solar minimum, all backing up one after the other, which is obviously going to have a compounding effect on how fast we merge back into a glacial period. But we are already there as far as I'm concerned. Before I get into it, I just want to say a big thank you to the few people that have took it upon themselves to step forward to that line. I know it's a difficult time of the year. I know, because we have run up a deficit over the last 18, 20 months at this observatory, which now is more clear than ever that we are not going to be able to clear up before January. And for that reason, we possibly are going to have to change a few things, next month. Hopefully not too dramatic where we bar people that should get hold of this information regardless, but something is going to have to change. So I just want to say a big thanks to all those people that support us, and if we are going to move forward with this, we need to do a lot more. And there is more than enough of us, guys. There's 32,000 people that subscribe to this channel. It could be a very easily solution for us all to come together and work together, but we know we don't live in an ideal world, and that is why some people do more than others. But to do nothing is not the answer to any of the issues which we face, and it's not just with what nature is throwing at us, it's with all the political issues that we've got now, which seem to be amplifying as even the weeks go by now. I'm talking about the suppression of freedom of speech and ideas. And even before I do these videos, because of what has happened with a couple of the topics that we've touched on just lightly, they're not even our main topics, but we've been punished for that. And as a result of that, what do you tend to do? Self-censor yourself. So you go over the information that you think is probably not too sensitive, not going to pay off anybody at YouTube or Google, and you're going to be able to have your freedom to discuss these things. But I will say this, the net is closing on these corporations. More than ever now, we are seeing lawsuits back up regarding some of these big platforms. I'm not going to mention them, but I know of a couple now that is building up, and they're in the tune of 150 million each. That's just with one of the companies. And by the time more and more people lose more and more because of their decisions on what they class as misinformation or not, people are going to suffer as a result of that. Because when you have another human being discussing what is misinformation, well, then it could be on any topic, as you can imagine. We could be talking about science, we could be talking about medical issues, and who is it that is employed by these platforms that has the right to decide whether it is medical misinformation or real information? The problem is that you cross a line where we are being dictated to. It is down to that person's interpretation of the information that you put up on these platforms, and it is that person that makes the decision there and then based on only his opinion, not even professional opinion, as to whether that is allowed or not. And that is not part of any democracy which we are led to believe we live in. Having said that, guys, I wanted to just go over the Milankovitch cycle a little bit more, and that's why we're looking at the Earth going round the Sun in this diagram on its elliptical orbit. That little blue line on the right hand side represents where the cycle starts. So we begin to travel further away from our Sun. The distance is 50,000 miles, and then we return to 50,000 miles back to a glacial cycle. So we have interglacial at the beginning and glacial at the very edge of the ring that you're looking at on the right hand side. This is what determines whether we are in a glacial period or an interglacial period. As you know from some of the charts that I've showed, we don't spend very long in interglacial periods. 12,000 years. So that will be split. 6,000 years getting closest to the most spherical shape of our orbit, and then 6,000 years moving out again towards the elliptical orbit. But in general, ice ages, or sorry, not ice ages, but glacial periods last 100,000 years. Interglacial, 15,000 if we're lucky. So now you've got an idea of where we're talking about, how our glacial periods and interglacial periods start and what is responsible for those. We'll have a look at some recent segments of data that show us more recent activity, not on the scale of anything like 100,000 years, because the reason why I want to show you this is so that you've got a good understanding that this is all backed up by facts, and we are, and it has been admitted now by NASA, that we are moving back towards an elliptical orbit where we merge back into a glacial period. I just want to show you that we may have already been doing that for the last 6,000 years, and it is for that reason that we could be witnessing what we saw this year in the Arctic Circle, where it has put on an extra 2 million square kilometres, huge expanse of ice. But if that wasn't enough confirmation that something drastic has changed in 1 year alone up in the Arctic Circle, you can always research how many ships and freight ships are actually stuck in the ice right now, waiting for Russian icebreakers to come and bail them out, because it's caught out many captains that use those routes regularly and have done during this glacial period, or at least for the last 30 years, let's say, of modern technology and modern shipping. So let's have a look at some more recent data. So for those that want a little bit more clarity about not just talking about how long these glacial periods and interglacial periods last, I just wanted to point it out clearly on there where the interglacial period starts and when the glacial period starts. As you can see, glacial periods last 100,000 years, interglacial around 12 to 15,000. So again, we're looking at another chart here, but this one only goes back 15,000 years. It's a temperature record where we can see, as you may have heard on other channels, people talking about the medieval warm period, the Roman warm period, the Aleutian warm period, when the Gulf Stream shut down during the Younger Dryas period. But what I have done on here for us guys is I've indicated a time period where the temperature went from interglacial to glacial, and I just wanted to show you the timeline in which it took for that temperature to reach its lowest point, putting us in probably one of the biggest peaks of a example of a glacial period. As you can see, it's 15,000 years, 1,500 years. So in that time period, the temperature had cooled enough to put us back into a glacial period, and also shut down the Gulf Stream. And that gives us an idea of how quickly we can merge back into one. Now you can see where we are at the present global warming period. It's coincidentally, or by no coincidentally, at the same as the 8,200 year cooling period. Exactly the same place, only we've got to justify global warming, so we're not going to use the word cooling, are we? If we're people like Al Gore, we're going to use the word cooling. But you can see the trend towards the most present time rocking on that important line. That is the line that shows us that where we cross, we go into a glacial period. And you can see by the trend of the last 2,000 years, it has been heading in one direction only. Now, not like Michael Mann with the golf hockey stick chart that goes back only from the 1860s. You can see that this Earth has not been global warming for at least 2,000 years, because the trend has always been constant from that point. So we are cooling, and if we are about to enter another glacial cycle, then it should come as no surprise to anyone that where we are on that elliptical orbit is not just beginning. We are at least 6,000 years into it already. So if you bear that in mind, 6,000 years of going into that Milankovitch cycle where the orbit of our Earth around the Sun becomes more elliptical, what that tells us is that, you know, at any point in time now we could see some dramatic changes. And 1,500 years is nothing. We could have already passed, you know, a lot of that, you know, in recent years. And 2021 has showed us things have changed over the ice caps. And, you know, if you look at general temperatures around the world, I believe that in general, when we look at the mean surface temperature, you'll see that there has been already a decline. Now, this in itself is bad because, first of all, our governments have not prepared for this. This is what shuts down the food production for the world, and has done in the past. Not even your Vikings could stay on Greenland during the last cooling period, when even temperatures modestly dropped by about one degree Celsius. It was enough to cover up Greenland and make it impossible for them to rear cattle. So, you know, they give up, and you can see that that wasn't that long ago when they was there. So, you know, putting it into perspective, we've got a couple of other things which are compacting the problem and may drive the climate down much faster from this point on out, because during the last glacial period, the beginning of it, there was not a magnetic pole reversal. The magnetic pole reversed many thousands of years before that. In fact, hundreds of thousands of years before that. So we know that we are definitely in a new ball game because of the fact that we're going into a glacial period, and to add that, we've got also magnetic poles reversing on the planet. We know how they affect the climate in general already. So adding to going into a glacial period is a bad thing, but it doesn't stop there, because there's something else taking place. For the last 33, 34, 35 years, we've seen a decay in the sun's production of sunspots. A grand solar minimum. And that also compacts the same problems as what we're already facing. So this, not only for the fact that the Earth is going through a magnetic pole reversal during a return to a glacial period, but we are also at a period of time where the sun's production of solar activity is at its lowest. And it is for that reason that we could go back into a glacial period much faster than 1,500 years. And what we're seeing over the northern hemisphere right now should be, of course, of concern for everybody, because we don't know what's going to happen next year, and you can't go on just what's happened in 1 year. But if it starts to repeat a trend year in, year out from now on, then, you know, it might not even be 10 years, might not even be 5 years before, you know, major events severely shut down one of the things we rely most upon more than ever now, because of the amount of population we've got on this planet of 8 billion people, and that is the food production to feed them. Just wanted to, clear up a few things on what we've been talking about with the Milankovitch cycle, the elliptical orbit, putting it into terms of how fast we see historically temperatures have declined to return to glacial periods, and where all this fits in with where we are right now. And this is just one problem. The problems of nature, which are not really problems because it's pretty natural for this behaviour to occur, we will see it as a problem because we haven't been here before. We haven't witnessed the worst part of a glacial period before. Man has only been on this planet for the last 45,000 years. The last glacial period lasted 100,000 years and began over 100,000 years ago. It's like man has never witnessed a magnetic pole reversal. For all we know, paleontologists might have it completely wrong. It could have been the pole reversal, which, wiped out millions of species years and years ago when it last reversed. we do know how harmful magnetic pole reversals are, at least because of what we've found out on this channel and at our observatory, how harmful they can be. They can render planets unusable or unlivable for any biodiversity, and we have proof of that. When we look at Mars, things are very different now to what there was in their history. Guys, one of the most difficult times for our observatory is December, and it's for a reason that, you know, people have a lot already on their plates financially, so supporting a luxury like our observatory usually is very way down the line of importance for them. But this will become apparent to everybody at some point. And now is more than a time than ever before to be supporting us. We could be 15 months away from watching the magnetic poles on our planet leave their strong field lines, enter the weak field lines, and something more very dramatic happen as a result of that. And if we have seen just since 1990, in the last 30 years, you know, the climate dramatically changed just because of the uptick in speed which the poles have been migrating, covering more distance in the same amount of time, then, you know, that should be a heads up for us all. There's a link down there if you want to help support us. Take care of your loved ones and start preparing. As always, bye for now.